This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, folks, welcome to the May meeting of the Harwich Golf Committee. And I'm very pleased to welcome not only Roman, who's our usual invited guest, but also Sean Fernandez to add a little commentary and history where it's appropriate. And especially Carol Coppola, our Chief Financial Officer for the town of Harwich. And Carol has an extraordinary resume. She's not only a CPA, but also a CFE. And I challenge anyone on the committee to tell me what CFE stands for. John Wheeler. You're muted, John.
Certified financial expert.
That's a good guess.
Works for me.
I know it has forensic in it.
Carol, could you put on your mic? Let's enlighten these people as to what a CFE is.
It is a certified fraud examiner.
Thank you. And the point is, people, if there was anything nefarious going on in the town of Harwich, we have a certified fraud examiner. So beware. In any event, thanks again. And, this meeting, of course, is being conducted in a virtual sense as pursuant to Governor Baker's orders, which were published back in March. And I wish that John Crook was correct. I wish this was the last one, but we'll get there somehow. I've covered the invited guest, and I made a slight change. It was a recommendation that Steve made, and Steve, because it was my prerogative, I moved the public comment up to the beginning of the meeting, and I would entertain any public comment at this time. Dave Wilson, who's been with us before. Anything to share, Dave?
Nope, not at this point in time, other than the fact that I think the public comment should be around the time that you have each germane topic. I think it's meaningless to have it before you've discussed or after all the conclusions have been made.
Okay. Could the individual known as Mike identify himself, please? I need that for the record. Mike?
I guess that's our secretary, Mike Saragin.
Yes, the guy that does the fabulous minutes each month, and I'm working on my garage door as I listen into the meeting.
Mike Saragin is the best. He's a time saver. Thank you, Mike. I just want to make sure. Okay, in any event, if we don't have any other comments, I would move to the consent agenda. And this is Mike Saragin's fine work. Approval of the April minutes. I'd entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Okay. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Terrific. That brings us next to Roman Greer. And Carol, for the record, usually I forget Roman's report. So at least I remembered this time. Roman, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, Clem. I know we have a lot to cover tonight, so I have a brief report. Let me just share my screen real fast. How's that? Can we see that?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, very quickly. All right, so we've had some events at the golf course recently, which is noteworthy because last year we basically did not have any events. So this is a return to normalcy and to some degree. May 10th, we had the Mass Open qualifier with 94 participants. I thought it was a great success, a great partnership between Mass Golf and our staff, because we did come into a rainy day where the golf course was unable to be prepared as usual. And we all worked out a 1-hour delay to the tee times. Sean got his crew out there and they got the course prepped beautifully. We had great comments on the event. The scores were very appropriate. I think the low score was 3 under, but all scores even par or better qualified for the proper Mass Open. So all in all, a great success in my eyes. That tournament was run by John Crook, so if he has any comments later, I'd welcome them. It's an independent view, but from our eyes, it was a great success. On May 14th, we hosted the Harwich Fire Association shotgun event with 120 participants. I have a photo on the next slide to show the cart staging, because that was really noteworthy for me, because it was the first opportunity we had to stage the carts in the new staging area that we've created with our landscape project, and it was fantastic. Worked just as planned, so really successful. May 17th, which was yesterday, was our SMGA event, the Salute Military Golf Association. Again, I have a photo of that one, but we hosted 32 veterans. Wonderful event. They brought their own flags. They had a real presence at the golf course. I included a letter from their director that he sent me this morning about how much fun they had and what a success it was. And then also noteworthy was we brought former golf committee member Tom Johnson out of retirement, and he was a host for the day of the event, served as an ambassador, and he's well loved by that group because he helped organize it, the inaugural event 4 years ago. So a great success once again. This Thursday, we have our member event, which right now has 82 players signed up, which is a little below normal years, but still a very good turnout. As I wrote here, food events for this, or food for the events has been served as a box lunch during the round due to state regulations. We're hoping as of Memorial Day weekend, with the new guidance from the governor, that may change. So I'll fill you in when I get notice on that. Here's a photo I was discussing of the cart staging area. That's every cart for 120 person shotgun, all in that one cart staging area. So that was a big success for our staff, and it was very well received by the Firefighters Association. They really thought it was an improved environment.
Roman?
Yes.
Roman,
Yes, Tom.
could I just add a quick comment?
Sure.
I think the entire committee should, really focus on this picture. It is worth 1,000 words. And I'll tell you what I'm referencing. I went into the hot stove and there were a group of gentlemen seated there. And, in a kind of excited way, I said, boy, what do you think of the hardscape treatment in front of the clubhouse? The resounding negativism was just unbelievable. They said basically the following: why did they have to do that? I don't see anything different. They took away my pine trees that used to provide shade. I'll tell you, folks, if you get a chance, I pushed back and I immediately said, with all due respect, I think you're missing some valuable points there. And I'm sure you can come up with your own comments as well. But, just seeing what Roman's presented here, I think underscores just how terrific this is going to be. The work has been exceptional by the gentleman that's done the contracting. Thanks, Roman.
Yeah, operationally, it's an absolute game changer. So we'll start operating out of that area very shortly on a daily basis. But it was fun to set up our first shotgun there, and it's going to be an absolute game changer for our operation. Here's a photo of the Salute Military Golf Association. You'll see Tom right in the middle. They presented Tom and I, along with the Veteran Affairs gentleman, with a nice American flag awards, which is awful nice. So, again, I want to highlight how great it was to have Tom Johnson on board. He was really instrumental in organizing this event, and he's become a real important person to the Salute Military Golf Association and our relationship with them. I got a letter here from them that, let me see, I can't see my whole screen, but it basically Thanks, Tom. And really, the reason I put it here is it says, please extend my heartfelt gratitude to the town board for their support and generosity. So he wanted to make sure that the entire town, and I'm sure he was referring to the committee and the Board of Selectmen, appreciate the relationship we have with Salute Military Golf Association. Finally, I'll just go over some of our projects and operations really quickly. CES, our electrical vendor, has begun work on the car barn charger grid. They were on property yesterday for the first time, and they're on pace for a completion at the end of June, which was according to contract. We have had an electrical break in the line that feeds the starter shed and the range, which has delayed the paving completion. We're currently working with town resources to install a new line. That should be done tomorrow, and then we're going to reschedule the paving hopefully for next week. That's just for the finish coat. But I'd love to point out while Sean's here, fantastic cooperation between all parts of our operation, led by Sean, in really allowing us to operate as usual. We got a generator up there. We didn't skip a beat. So thanks to Sean and his staff for jumping right in an emergency situation. And we really have not missed a beat. We've got the range back in operation, tying in the electric to the lightning detection system that's down on the range. And we have a generator right outside the starter shed that's got us operating as usual. So a great collaboration with Sean and the staff. They jumped right in and put out the fire before it became a problem. As far as the project goes, irrigation, plantings, and mulch all are part of the change order with Bowditch. They're all nearing completion. We have a new Cranberry Valley commercial that's currently airing on the Comcast platforms, and it highlights our 10-minute tea time intervals and the ease of booking. I'll send the link to the committee so you can see this new spot if you don't have Comcast, but I'm already getting great feedback from it, and it directs people to book tea times and pay online, and we're seeing results already. We're getting a lot of online payments, online bookings, so I think that commercial is generating a lot of new business. And then annual pass sales continue to be strong. We passed 1,000 annual pass sales last week. I'll provide a more detailed analysis at next month's meeting. I just haven't had a chance to provide analysis because we're so busy processing sales on a daily basis. We are rescheduling the Harwich Police Association's shotgun event. I'm finding a date for them in a weekday in October. They were not ready to go this spring. Their event was scheduled for about 2 weeks from now, and they asked to be pushed back to the fall. So I'm thinking I'm going to offer them the Monday that we had offered the Monomoy High School, which is boosters, which is the Monday after Columbus Day. We'll see, though. I'll work on an exact date with them. And then finally, as far as course conditions go, Sean and I have had a partnership where we've decided to maintain faster green speeds than we have in the past. And it's all due to new equipment. We have new practices such as the light sand top dressing. The tee time intervals help because when we speed up the greens, there's a little room there in case play slows down a little bit. There's still a lot of space on the golf course. So we have a plan going forward that we're experimenting with slightly faster green speeds than we've had in the past. And that's all a testament to our new equipment and our new practices and our 10-minute tee times. And that's all I have for you.
I think that's the best report you've given in months, Roman.
All right. Keep the financials out of it. I think that seems to get us all in a tailspin.
Well, we can catch up with those finances as we go forward. All right. Would you take your screen back? Okay.
How's that? Does that work?
That works. Thank you. Okay, folks, moving right along, we're at our new business juncture, and I beg everyone's indulgence. What I'd like to do is table the review of the meeting protocols that Steve suggested. If time is available, Steve, at the end, we can discuss those recommendations that you offered. And the core of the meeting, and I anticipate and hope that everybody can cooperate in this respect. I'm keeping the mics open, et cetera, so please raise your hand when we get into comments and sharing points of view, because I don't want speakers, and you see this on television all the time, they speak over each other, and I think it's counterproductive. but under a fairly broad brush review of current business practices for golf operations, implications for future budgeting strategies. With this kind of focus, we can cover a lot of the points that Steve raised in his information that he supplied to the committee, that he made public to the committee. And for that reason, I've assembled a group of what I regard as experts as far as our operations are concerned, namely Sean, Roman, of course, Carol Coppola, and I had the great pleasure of sitting down with our new town administrator, Joe Powers. I have a summary of comments, bullet points, if you will, and I documented this. I sent a copy to Joe. I think the comments that I'm going to share articulate what we discussed. And it was almost an hour's meeting, so there were a lot of things that were covered in that respect. And I'll just preface my remarks by stating that, based on what Steve presented, I humbly suggest, are we chasing a solution to a problem that perhaps does or does not exist? That's up to the committee to determine. However, increasingly in the last few months, it's become apparent, and I said to Sean, because he's got that historical frame of reference that I could access, about every 10 years, it seems that history repeats itself. For example, I have heard overtures, let's sell the golf course. We've got a gentleman running for selectman who suggested that very thing. I have access to a document that was published by a taxpayers group about 10 years ago. You ready for this? The rumor that Cranberry Valley could be put up for sale is real. If the patterns described above are continued, the fact that expenses have nothing to do with creating services and that they have no relationship to the actual cost of providing services, they are charged to Cranberry Valley's budget annually. This kind of misinformation is certainly not helpful. And Sean? Where did Sean go?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Sean, if you could fill us in on the actual inception of the golf course, its purpose, if you will, and I think it's really enlightening because all of these issues like privatizing, members only, annual pass holders of Harwich only, being able to access the golf course, all those things were not part of the core concept at the inception of this golf course.
Well, it basically comes down to really two things: affordable golf to the residents of the town of Harwich, and then also the land that was used was put into passive recreation. So because of that, you're limited to what you can do with the property. All in all, we went, like you said, 10 years ago. People were talking all this, that all that homework was done. The way that the land was taken and put into passive recreation only sets it up to be one thing: passive recreation. It can't be houses. It can't be anything else other than what it is. I've been obviously with Cranberry Valley for a long time. I've been the superintendent for 23 years, but I worked there also another 6 years when I was 16 years old. It's grown up and become something that I don't think that a lot of people thought it would be, which is a very productive department in the town of Harwich that provides not only a great membership for its residents, but also to the surrounding towns and people who travel here. I think that the way that we have Cranberry Valley set up is only for success. We said this before when I got there, 23 years ago, and we can still say it today. We do the things that we have to do when we have to do them. And what we've been doing is exactly that. We give the residents of this town everything, both if they're members or if they're not, the best deal on the Cape. No one can beat what we do. We give them a private club feel on a public setting. And I think that we do it in a manner which is both financially correct for the town and for the residents. So in that case, there's pretty much all the history that you really need. I mean, when I got there, the golf course had already made somewhere in the vicinity of $30 million, and in the grand scheme of stuff, it's been nothing but an asset for the town. So we'll leave it at that.
Okay. John, thank you. That brings up the next item. And again, these conversations tend to recycle themselves. This one is budget specific. And in terms of budget concerns, comments in the negative, like money being hidden by town officials, money being extracted from golf accounts in a nefarious way. I have documented from 2009 3 specific legal judgments, if you will, from the very renowned outfit of Compliment and Page in particular. There are 2 of these such documents, and also correspondence between the Massachusetts Department of Revenue and the Harwich Golf Committee. We have been down this road as far as budgeting, allocation of resources based on revenues from the golf operation for a number of years. These date 2009, 2010.
You left holes, Clem.
2011. Steve?
There's some big holes, though, that you left.
Well, I'm not going to debate that. We'll get to a conversation point in time. I'm just demonstrating that there is factual documentation that town officials in the town of Harwich have acted accordingly. It might not suit everybody's perception of what it should or should not be, but the legal renderings are there for examination. Next, it brings us to, actually where we are today, and that is the turning point that was created by perhaps pressure from the golf committee or the town fathers being somewhat enlightened. And the fact is that now we have 3 funding mechanisms, 3 accounts that allow us to have somewhat proprietary domain over some of our revenue that we generate. And the second thing is, of course, and it might not seem that relevant, but it truly is, we have an outstanding relationship with our capital outlay committee and also the finance committee. You could go back historically, 10 years ago, the relationship between capital outlay, for example, and the golf committee was a zero-sum game. They did not appreciate requests that we made, and I think the door, opened and swung both ways. There was a lot of animosity there, and as Roman well knows, and Sean does, the last few years that I've been involved in those joint meetings have been, really impressive in a very positive way. So in that context, I'd like to basically ask the same question of Roman and Carol and Sean, and essentially it's this. Are we as a committee on the right track regarding our budget, our projections, our financing, our basic overall business operations? Because the model that we have in place, I believe, has worked to our benefit. And with that being said, and I hate to dominate this way, but I wanted to share the Joe Powers comments first. And I did this in a series of questions and answers, and I'll be as brief as possible. There are only 5, and I think you'll see, the points that were being raised. The first question, in terms of planning and budget preparation, asking of Joe, are you satisfied with the input that the Harwich Golf Committee has given the town in the last 10 years based on what you know before you assumed your duties? And he said the following, absolutely. If there were a manifest problem, I can assure you, I would have contacted Roman Greer, yourself, and the committee. The second question, what can we anticipate as we move forward into 2023 in terms of budget concerns and long-range planning? His answer was, I thought this was very progressive. I intend to meet with all departments and necessary committees to help shape the vision that your group intends to define. This is a partnership between myself and our finance director, as well as input from each committee when necessary. Ultimately, the Board of Selectmen will give their blessing as well. Next question. Is there merit in pursuit of creating or operating under a municipal enterprise fund? The answer? No, not at this time. It's impractical. I think this reflects, Steve, some comments you made. It's not to your advantage to pursue that direction. I would not in any way recommend this to the Board of Selectmen. Next question. Would you regard the Emerson case as settled law? Does this give the town the discretion and unequivocal right to manage and allocate revenue as they see fit? His answer, absolutely. Roughly 10 years ago, the Harwich Golf Committee sought clarification on this very matter. The facts speak for themselves. In fact, I've actually engaged in and know personally the people who rendered those decisions that are in print at the bottom of those documents. Allocation of revenues is the sole discretion of the town without restriction. In the municipal world, profit does not exist. People may not like that as news, but it's a fact. Allocation of revenues is an ongoing challenge. The town continues to strive to meet the needs of each and every department. At the same time, it has to balance its approach to guaranteeing the greater needs of the entire community and that they are met in a fiscally responsible way. Next question. Some individuals within the town seem confused as to who owns the golf course. How can we answer this question? His answer is quite simple. The town owns it, and without restriction, it cannot be sold or privatized. Annual pass holders in this town are very fortunate that they have this type of access to the town's golf venue. They are not entitled to, nor are they compelled to pay the annual pass fee. And last question, do you feel there's need for clarification as to the charge, the duties, and responsibilities of the Harwich Golf Committee under the charter? The answer? No. Committees serve at the pleasure of the selectmen. Their obligation is to meet their responsibilities on behalf of the entire town, not any select group of individuals. So that is not all of, but certainly I felt were the key points that were raised. So Roman, I'd like to go to you and get you to respond to that question that I posed. Thank you.
Sure, Clem. I was listening to your Joe comments. I'm not sure I remember the exact question, but it was fire away. What's the question one more time?
Just that, are we on the correct track as far as financing, budgeting, projecting, general
Sure.
business operations?
Okay, I know you guys hear from me monthly on this topic. I'm very comfortable with our financial setup. I think that we've got the best of both worlds, where we've got our dedicated funds that allow us to plan for the future, and that money is dedicated. And we also have a great partnership with the town. We see that in so many different regards. I mean, even I just briefly referenced this electrical situation that we're dealing with. We're having the water department's electrician help us with it. DPW, highway department always help. There's no bills that exist between them. It's strictly a partnership. And I have worked previously in an enterprise fund. My previous job was in Barnstable. And, when you have that interdepartmental help, guess what? A bill comes for it. I mean, every department's independent in that regard. And so when DPW is on site, they're sending you a bill. When one of the town's electricians is there, they're sending you a bill. And there is a very arbitrary assessment at the end of the fiscal year by the finance director in the enterprise fund that really can't be anticipated, and it's the nut that you have to pay your share of the town's expenses, all the different departments, as far as the town administrator on down to the IT department. And when they divvy up those costs, it's an arbitrary number that comes to you, and it can be frustrating that you don't get a chance to plan for it necessarily. But once again, I think our setup is much better as far as future planning. And then especially coming out of a pandemic and a tornado situation, we had the town to back us up. And I think that's the best case scenario there is, when we had to close, we weren't looking at laying off employees. We weren't looking at really having to scrape together. We knew we had the town backing us up, and we were going to be fine regardless of what occurred. So I completely endorse our situation. I think we're on the best track.
Okay. Thanks so much. Sean, that was another reason why I seriously wanted you here. On the maintenance side, not that it's entirely different, but it is your world, and you have operated under several different, we'll call it regimes or regimens or whatever. And, I'd like your frank assessment of, where we are and how this is working for you.
Well, I'll say this. When I first got to Cranberry Valley, the reason they brought me in was because the greens and everything wasn't doing what they were. We were starting to lose revenue. At that point, I came in and I redid the whole maintenance program from top to bottom. How we did things, what we did. We brought everything into the year 2000, in the way we maintain, aerify, spray, amount of water, amount of fertilizer. Everything got looked at. Everything was critiqued. And it took a while for the town to understand the way that we were going to do, that we wanted to do business. It wasn't going to be like it was before, where we would have to wait 10 years and then finally go spend $1.5 million to go do a project. We had to change from that because the town was taxes every year going back to the piggy bank. So we decided to make some changes. And one of those changes was to set it up so that it felt more like what we would say is a private business, that we were going to spend a certain amount of money, or at least try to spend that amount of money on capital projects each year, so that the problem didn't become a huge problem. And we were maintaining it, just like you do your house, your car, or anything else. Spend a little bit each year will get you a lot further than spending a lot of money and then wait until it breaks. That it just doesn't make sense. So when we made the change, some of the changes had to be made were equipment. We went into a lease equipment instead of buying equipment. It was more beneficial for the town, even though it cost us a little bit of more money. At least we knew that we could get equipment and be on the front line to do the things that we need to do to put the golf course where it is today. So understand that when we set this up, 20 years ago, when we were starting to think about how we wanted to do this, we had the mentality of a private club, but we had to work within the municipal situation, and we made it work very well for us. And understand this, every golf course on Cape Cod that's a municipal is trying to copy what we do. I hope that the people on the community members and the other people that are listening understand this. If you go to another golf course and you say these questions like, "Oh, I'm from Cranberry Valley," I guarantee you they're going to tell you something that's good, really good about Cranberry Valley. It's because we take the time and effort in municipal life to give them that private club feel. So understand, it's taken a while to get here, and we've plotted and planned it, but the path has been exactly what we did in the private world, which was a master plan about what we wanted to attack and how we were going to attack it. And we've done that over the last 20 years. Why change something now when you've got something working so good? I mean, and the way I look at it is that if everyone's trying to copy you and you got one of the best golf courses on Cape Cod, it's kind of foolish to tinker with something that's real good. That's my stance.
Sean, thank you. And Carol, finally, we come to you, and thanks again, because at the administrative level that you operate at, it's not entirely, but it's certainly remote from where we are at the ground level, so to speak. So I would love to have you share your insights and perspective on operations as you see them. Obviously, you can compare the golf department to other departments within the town, and I'm sure that you have other municipal experiences that you could lean on as well. So thank you.
Sure. Well, thank you for inviting me. I have been with the town of Harwich since April of 2017. Some of the history that you speak of is foreign to me as well, except for the information that I've gathered through files and research. So the golf course is coming a long way in being able to fund its own expenses. About a year and a half ago, I began the process of calculating for every department in the town the benefit costs, employee benefit costs, and the allocations. As you may be aware, those are summarized or categorized for all town departments, and those are not accounted for in the golf budget, nor are they accounted for in any other department's budget. So that information was first presented in a budget document that was intended to be discussed with the Board of Selectmen back in March of last year. As you're aware, that was detained until a much later date, but the information has been available since then, or before then. I calculated that same information for the budget, upcoming fiscal year budget for FY22, and that was also presented on the town's website, and I can certainly provide that to your committee and would be happy to. Those costs, again, were calculated for every department, not just the golf department. And the allocation of those costs was primarily employee benefits and debt expenses. We didn't go through a full allocation basis because of all town departments, such as the finance department that touches every department in the town, administration and engineering and those departments. We did not go through the process that we do on an annual basis with the Water Enterprise Fund and now the Sewer Enterprise Fund to calculate those indirect costs. That is an undertaking, that's a desk study for each desk. And that was done here in Harwich a number of years ago when indirect costs were first being calculated for the enterprise funds that do exist or did exist at that time. Right now, we have the golf department, Cranberry Valley, in the upcoming fiscal year, the total cost that we've allocated, and these are allocated again based on paper allocations because they're accounted for separately in another, I guess I'll call it separate overall general employee benefit department. So the total cost that's being budgeted was just under $2.3 million. As you are aware, we adjusted the revenue budget for Cranberry Valley. We increased it to $1.8 million. You've come a long way in being able to cover your costs. And we expect that $1.8 million is a conservative estimate. And I think Roman would agree with me. Yes. I am a pretty conservative person, so I think that Roman wanted to be even more aggressive on revenue. And I just, pushed back a little bit and said, can we just look at it for another year? So I am happy to entertain questions as they may come about in the committee. I don't want to be preemptive in a conversation. But I would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay. Steve, your hand up first.
Yes. Do you have itemization, Carol, for the 2.3 million?
I do.
Could you send that to us? Because that's different than what we're seeing on a regular basis in our spreadsheets.
Also, I can provide you the document that was provided at town meeting and is on the website. I'd be happy to provide that to you.
Okay.
Could I just interrupt for a second, Carol? Did any of you people have the pleasure of going to the town meeting?
Sure.
I felt fortunate in this respect because, as Carol just alluded to, there was an incredibly informative document, Carol, and I was even going to ask you, but I didn't want to bother you, figuring you were doing us a favor today. It was a summary of motions, not the warrant article itself, but folks, if you get a chance, there's some great material in there. There's a lot of graphic information. There's a whole financial overview of the posture of the town. Carol, did you have to do that entire document?
I did prepare the entire document. And then the one that's on the website is much more comprehensive than this is a summary.
Well, what I would humbly suggest to the committee, since there's a keen interest in this, you really should go through that document. It's I didn't realize that was you, but I was really impressed. I wish the graphs were in color because they were kind of hard to, as that I'm sure you're aware of. But
They will be in color in the document that I send to you.
yeah. Okay. Another question. Anybody? John
on.
Crook? Okay, folks. Steve,
got a bunch.
again?
I guess we will.
Losing him.
Steve, I can't hear you.
I thought John was speaking. John seems to be frozen. But
Say that in a nice way. Go ahead. Yeah, Steve, go
so,
ahead.
yeah, I have a bunch of questions still.
Would it be practical? Well, go ahead.
Again, if you look at the spreadsheet that we've been working off of, Carol, our expenses come out to like 1.7. So I'm really curious as to if you've seen that spreadsheet that was in Roman's director's report from last month's meeting. I'm curious as to what could be missing to the tune of over $600,000.
So I can answer that question. It would include life insurance, Medicare, other post-employment benefits. Those are other post-employment benefits other than pensions, the county retirement, health insurance. And then when you have anticipated for an employee to retire, they'll be paid out a vacation and a sick bonus. And so that would be included in there as well as the debt service that's associated with Cranberry Valley.
Well, according to the spreadsheet that we've been working off of, our capital outlay is $68,000. I don't know if that's the debt service.
That is not the debt service.
All right, so the salary and wages was $919,000 and change. So that we're still a long way from over $600,000.
You are not, no, I can assure you the FY22 does foot, so it does add properly. So there's almost $376,000 worth of for employee benefits.
Okay.
And the rest of it is debt service.
Okay. So is there a usage fee that you guys allocate to us?
So the only time, I don't know what a usage fee is, but if you're referring to the costs that certain departments spend processing or working with the golf department, is that what you're referring to?
Well, I'm referring to two things, and I apologize if I'm not using the right term, but based on the documents that Clem sent out from 10 years ago, it clearly says that the town certainly has the right to charge a land use fee for land that's owned by the town that's being used for a purpose like a golf course, and for recovery of the shared services, for lack of a better term, across all town departments, et cetera, et cetera. And I just don't know if any of that has ever been itemized or estimated.
I have no idea if it's been itemized or estimated. We
It was-
base our accounting on the Uniform Massachusetts system of accounts, and that is how we are required to maintain our accounting system. So we would have to keep two sets of books in order to do what you're suggesting. And that is just not something that I think the town would look favorably upon. So we do not. The only time any costs that are associated with a department, let's say, for example, the finance department processing the water enterprise funds payable and accounts payable, and their receipts, their billing, we calculate those as an indirect cost. Those costs are calculated prior to the completion of the budget for the upcoming year, and those are only associated with enterprise funds. So
Correct.
the golf department is not an enterprise fund, and as such, it would not be appropriate for us to calculate all those costs and charge them to the golf department.
So as opposed to doing a detailed calculation and charging the department, could we not do it simply as a practice so that we can get an estimate of what those are?
You certainly could. If you'd like to hire somebody, you could do that.
Okay. I don't think we need to hire somebody. I could do it. It's not rocket science.
Well, I'm not saying it's rocket science. We are very sparsely staffed.
Fun time.
I mean, because
The
in
other thing-
essence, the place we are right now, and the biggest concerns I have is there's lots of things that we'd like to do to continue to enhance the golf course, maintain and enhance the golf course. There are more things that we'd like to do to maintain and enhance the golf course than we have the money to do, or certainly the money to do at the pace that we would like to do. We also have the obligation of defining rates and fees. It's all very difficult to do when you don't have a good total financial picture. I read the legal documents that the attorneys that Clem supplied. I read the response from the town administrator from 2009. And again, while it's not a requirement by law that this level of accounting be done, it's not a requirement by law that it doesn't be done either. And so in order to facilitate fairness to the people who are using the golf course, the committee that's trying to set priorities and schedules for what we're going to do to continue the enhancement of the golf course and keep that revenue stream going and or growing, it would be so much easier if we had a better idea of what those indirect costs were, an estimate of what those indirect costs were, guidelines of what those indirect costs were, so that we could at very least use that information to help, again, either set priorities for us if we're going to be restricted to, in essence, a budget that just gets defined as any other town department as opposed to against revenue. But in essence, if you read those documents, when it talks about the use fees and it talks about the interdepartment charges, it says quite clearly that those are legitimate costs to the town and legitimate, quote unquote, revenue opportunities, if you want to call it that, or and therefore could be allocated expenses to the golf course. But right now, they are wholly undefined. We don't know if they're $10,000 a year or $2 million a year. And that I just don't think is right. I think we owe the public that plays at the course, we owe the members, and we certainly owe the committee that's trying to define priorities and projects and trying to define what the appropriate rates and fee structure should be. I think we should have that information so we can make the appropriate strategic decisions.
Well, Steve, and Sean, I'll get to you. Based on what Carol just said, I think, that she's indicated that she would like to share more information. And I think that it's a process, obviously.
Yeah, but it doesn't need to be this process this long. We've been talking about this for 9 months, Clem. And we've got no
I beg to differ. I beg to differ. The fact that the facts speak for themselves. I just listened to 4 people basically indicate that we're in pretty darn good shape. And
but those are just 4 people's individual, personal, and
they're
more
not
than
just 4 people.
very biased opinions. I'm asking for the data. I'm asking for the facts.
Sean?
Glenn, can I say something, Glenn?
Yes, Sean.
So, if you are thinking that you want all this information to make hard decisions about what we're going to do and how we're going to do it in a more timely fashion, apparently expedient factor, then you have to look at the town of Harwich as a whole. Since 1970, the whole town of Harwich is a cost center. It deems it as a cost center. No one department's better than the other. They bring the money in through the tax base, and you go to town meeting, and you have a conversation at town meeting and which is going to be appropriated to what. Now, if you want to have that conversation, understand the whole town sees it as one. No one department can be more than the other. So if Cranberry Valley is pulling their weight in which we are and doing the things that we're supposed to, we're benefiting the town as a whole. To take one town business out of another that is no longer a cost center, it now becomes a business.
And I'm not suggesting that, Sean. But in the same
you are. Hold on. Let me finish. Let me finish first. Because understand this. This is the same conversation we had 20 years ago, in which we said at that time, when the documents that you're talking about was enterprise, and the town came up exactly with what you've read, that it cannot be sold. It cannot be used for anything but passive situation. We can't make a profit. The town is a non-profit center. So for you to say what you're saying and keep more of our own profits to do what we need to do, we would be putting one department over another department in town, which by charter is not how the town of Harwich is run. It can be if you choose to want to go back and set up a town mayor and have it done with the mayor in a different situation. But it can't. We went through this in 2000. We went through all of that. And you can tell me differently. Tell me how one town can do it differently than and separate one department if it's on an enterprise. If it's on an enterprise, it's a cost center. Go ahead, Steve.
John, thank you. Jack, please.
Yeah, Carol, can you hear me all right?
I can hear you.
Okay. If I look at the numbers that you mentioned the expenses of 2.3 million and the revenue was potentially projected at 1.8 million, I think, and that doesn't include some of the stuff I think that Steve is talking about. This is just easily identifiable expenses and revenues. Should our objective become that those two numbers should match? Because should those numbers, if we just did that, I mean, if I look at 1,000 members and a $500,000 deficit, that might mean our expenses go up $500 per annual fee, or not something in that range.
Well, I would tell you, not necessarily.
Okay.
We have many departments that are in the town that aren't revenue generators.
Right.
And they're never going to get to the point where Cranberry Valley has been very successful. When we say that, there's nearly $500,000 of expenses when we allocate employee benefits and debt to Cranberry Valley in total. What I didn't talk about was the infrastructure fund that you do support some of your debt. So instead of that $1.8 million, I believe you're bringing in just under $105,000 to support a portion of Cranberry Valley's debt in FY22. So instead of the 1.8, we're really talking 1.9. But your debt's going to be paid off in not too long in the future. So that has to be in your planning as well. So I guess, the Cranberry Valley can never make a profit, ever. It's
I'm not saying make profit.
regulations. The only, the way that it, if you want to call it a cost center, if we want to call it a department of the town, they're never going to be able to exceed and bring a profit to the town of Harwich. So keep that in mind. But I hope I answered your question. I'm happy to follow up if you would like further clarification.
Roman, thanks.
Yeah, Clement, I just wanted to bring up something that we discussed over rate and fee season, and also the monthly spreadsheet I give you that has the debt listed at the bottom. So as Carol just mentioned, if we're projecting 1.8, and then we throw in the 100,000 or so in the infrastructure fund that pays for the cart barn debt, that gets us to 1.9. As that document that I normally provide shows, by FY23, all the old previous debt is off the books, and we're down to about 2.1 would be our fully allocated costs. And I think our reality this year is we're at about 2 million, and it's where we are really closing that gap. And that was the conversation at rates and fee season, is a goal of closing that gap. Then once we close the gap, we start raising our rates and fees to feed our funds, and that accelerates the project. So that's why I think we have a really good setup, is we're closing that gap, and then we allocate more money into our funds so that we can accelerate projects and can do what we want to on the golf course. So I think that, when you see this maybe $600,000 gap in the middle, we're looking at, in the next fiscal year to 2 fiscal years, a really small gap.
Exactly. Yeah, Jack.
Yeah, and I just offer, I think you could minimize the, if I look at the annual report, I think when I look at the golf section, I think the only thing it talks about, and maybe this is sensitive because of the difference, but the only thing that it talks about is the revenue. I think at least my recollection is it only talks about how much revenue is brought in the annual report. I think you could minimize some of the questions of should we sell the course, or should we, get rid of it, or it doesn't hold its weight. If you started to share some of the total data that says, okay, we're 2.3 or 2.3 and 1.9, whatever the numbers turn out to be, but we're also projecting to go to, break even for the rest of the from fiscal year 23 and on. I think you could minimum of the questions on the financial viability of this course.
Thank you, Jack. Point well taken. John Crook or Paul White? John Wheeler? Okay, people, at this point in time, and I've got, other topics under old business, I'd like to table the conversation as such, and I want to thank Carol for her time and efforts. And I would humbly suggest as well that Steve, perhaps to your point, it is possible to arrange meetings with, those that represent it or those that are employed by the town. And, if that's a direction you want to take, so be it. If it's profitable or something that can be brought back to the committee, I would say all well and good. But overall, I think, the conversation's been very productive. The one thing I can walk away with as chairperson is simply that we're doing a lot of the things correctly, and that with additional information in hand, I think we can continue to make projections and make budget assumptions and budget decisions that are in fact, logical. They may not be perfect, but, I don't think anybody would be upset with, how we affect our determinations. So with that said, I'd like to go to the old business of our vision statement. And Carol, I realize you've been super busy. If you want to be excused, it's great, but you'll miss John Wheeler's vision statement. It's very enlightening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carol.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Okay, John, the floor is yours.
Okay, let me get this, let me share my screen. Hopefully I did this right. Share. Can you, okay, what you should see in front of you, okay, is the document that I shared with, that's been shared with all of you.
Yes.
Let me see if I can make this a little, there we go, good, okay. And what I've done is I took the conversation that we had at our last meeting in April, and I amended the vision statements, boiled them from 4 down to 2, and tried to incorporate themes, if you will, from that conversation in April into 2 versions. And read at the top, I tried to summarize the differences between the two statements, and I'm just going to summarize that. I'm not going to read every word, but you'll see version 1 identifies Audubon certification explicitly, whereas version 2 implicitly includes that same in the first statement under this phrase called financially and environmentally sustainable. That's been a big theme that's come out from the exploration of the development of this notion about a vision statement. And certainly if you use the phrase financially and environmentally sustainable, there's a whole bunch of things that can fall that can fall from that tree, if you will. And I'll talk more about them in a minute. Other than those two, that distinction, okay, they're basically the same statement. What I've added to version 1 and version 2, by the way, again, I talked before about trying to keep this under 50 words. That's an ideal, that's an objective, but in this case, we're pretty close, and we could wordsmith this thing, okay, with one word here, one word there, and so on and so forth to get it into the 50s. But I think you get a sense of what I'm trying to accomplish with the vision statements. I have also things that sort of fall out, and my hope is that they'll merge with the work, John, that you're doing in the short terms, because we need alignment between the short term and the long term. Is if we're going to have an environmentally sustainable golf course, then certainly number 1, certify the course as Audubon Sanctuary. It could be a measurable objective for us to hit. And then in terms of being a value added and contributed to the community, certainly host X number of events. You determine what the number is. In terms of the junior program, you see 3 and 4, and under environmentally sustainable, you'll see the whole issue of achieve energy independence, and so on. Now, in terms of the experience itself and improving the superior experience, we've talked before about this notion of range solar lighting. I don't know whether that stays in, where it falls out, but the notion, I didn't want to lose it, which would be tied together with install a 4-season training facility, and then from being not only environmentally sustainable, but also in a continuous improvement effort to install and maintain a state-of-the-art irrigation system, then maintain that system as well. There's one other one that's come up since I sent these out to you, and I think it has to do with the Mungeon report in terms of managing the course, in terms of the whole layouts and how they're structured. And it certainly is a comprehensive reference point for us to use that we could, I'm not sure what the words are at this point, but certainly leverage that in terms of setting a few, not a lot, but a few goals and objectives in terms of moving the golf course forward from an environmental standpoint as well as from a financial standpoint. So I guess I'll stop there and I'll say, any observations for what you see and what I've talked about today before we get into it? I just some wordsmithing here.
Okay, if you're ready, Paul White, please.
John, I really, I like both of them, frankly, but I think 2 is a little more subtle, and I think it incorporates the whole Audubon certification without having to say it, which is what I like.
Yep.
And frankly, you know, I know we're trying to get to 50 words, but it's worth expending a little more energy and expression if it more captures, you know, if it more clearly and appropriately captures what we've been talking about in the work up to this process. So, I mean, I really appreciate all the work you've done. I think they're both very, very good reflections of the drafts that folks submitted, but I like, for my purposes, I like 2 just a little bit better.
Thanks, Paul. Anybody else?
Martha.
First of all, John, I want to thank you for all the time that you put into this, because I know, coming from my background, the vision is so important for any institution. And I thought the version for number 2 reflected and incorporated all of the things that we would like to present to people that come to Cranberry Valley. So I sort of agree with Paul, and I would go with number 2.
Thank you, Martha. Anybody else?
Tom?
Go ahead, John.
I can't see you, so I'm looking at my screen. So
Okay, it's Clem. I also concur with Paul and Martha. I think number 2 is just very focused on, you know, what some of the subtle goals and objectives we have in mind. And I really appreciate the fact that you've referenced the Mungeon initiatives, you know, collectively, because it all goes together. I think Roman and I were discussing that privately earlier in the week, whether it's cart paths or forward tees, that we still have a lot on the plate, you know, to put out there as a product for the golf operation. Roman, wouldn't you concur with that? I mean, they all tie together. And if we look at our junior course initiative and the potential for a mega putting complex, he would be the go-to person.
I agree that with all the comments that I think both versions are very good. They're actually very subtle differences. I prefer version 2, and I think it encapsulates everything we're trying to do. I think it's a good, clear vision. And then as far as the goals and objectives go, you know, we can add to that list. But if we're just discussing the versions, I think they're both really good, and I slightly prefer version 2 as well.
okay, thank you. Thanks, Roman. Any other comments?
Roman, this is Jack. I would vote for version 2 as well.
Okay, thanks, Jack.
John, where would you like to take this?
I think as a word that jumps out at me at version 2. By the way, thanks for that feedback. I appreciate it. And I figured we'd probably end up with number 2, but I figured we had to have apples and oranges or something to compare, even if they're closely aligned. The word fully financially, environmentally sustainable. I know I'm wordsmithing here, but I think it's important. I mean, I could take this document, let me just try something here, okay? I'm going to take this word out. Which do you like better? This one or that one?
Oh, I like it with the word out.
I like
Yeah,
it with it out, with it
I
out.
like it without it.
Okay,
Yeah, fully is unnecessary.
that's what I figured we would get that. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm looking for.
John,
Other-
is the municipal public differentiation, why couldn't you just call it municipal?
That's a good question. What do you think, guys?
Where's that, Jack?
The first is the premium municipal / public.
It's right there.
Yeah, I
Right there.
think, yeah, municipal, period.
It's
Well,
municipal.
doesn't that bring into mind, are we comparing ourselves only with municipal golf courses, or are we comparing ourselves with the other public courses? I think that we want to compare ourselves with the full scope of public golf opportunities. So I kind of like public being in there in that regard. We're not just measuring ourselves against municipalities, but all public courses in our area, I believe.
Roman, help me out with something, Roman. Okay, give me an example of a public course that I might be aware of. That's not municipal.
Sure. I think one of the golf courses that's public that we're always going to compare ourselves with that's a resort type golf course is Pine Hills in Plymouth. But not only that, I think public golf courses on Cape would be the Ballymead golf courses, the Cape Club that's in there, Quashnet Valley. There's other ones, including there's others. There's other golf courses. I think New Seabury we'd compare with, which is another resort.
Yeah.
That's a point well taken, Roman. Thank you.
Kingsway, that's not
Kingsway, yeah.
private. Public, Blue Rock.
You've answered my question.
I think
I think
Roman's
that's my
point is
question.
well taken.
Okay. So, given Roman's point, should we leave this in or should we leave it in, right? Okay.
I would leave it in.
All right.
I'd leave
Leave it
it.
in, okay. Okay, so now I'm working primarily with this one, okay? So let's take a look at the other words that are in there. Let's spend just a few minutes, okay, taking a look at the wording in this. And see if there's anything else in terms of a phrase or a word that jumps out at you says, there's something that hits me wrong with it.
John, this is Jack again. To me, it says, the section that says, learn, improve, enjoy golf on a regionally top-rated practice facility course golf instruction. You don't really mention the course.
All right, well, let me try something, Jack, and just tell me if this hits you right. Oh, let me back up a second. Okay, bear with me 1 second. Top rated
Course, practice facility.
How's that?
I can't see it. I got bad eyes.
Come on, Jack. I put this word in down here, Jack.
All right, you can see it now. Thank you.
That works, John.
John Wheeler,
Yep, go ahead.
would you be kind enough to put a comma after Cape Cod and Cranberry Valley?
Only because you asked me nicely.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Martha. I got it.
The English.
Anything else? I'm serious now, guys. Take a look at this in detail.
John, I've got an idea where you just added the word course. What if we made that a little simpler and said just got rid of course and got rid of practice and just wrote top rated facility to cover all aspects of the property?
I don't know. I like the practice facility because it is so good.
All right, let me just try something here, okay? Okay, there's the new version. Hopefully you can see the old version here if I can get to it. I can't, sorry. Okay, there's the old one. Our regionally top-rated course, practice facility, and so on. Over here is our regionally top-rated facility. I think, Roman, let me push back on that and tell me if you agree. I think that there's a point at which it becomes so general in these statements that it really doesn't hit home. Whereas this is a facility.
I'm reading it. I agree with you. I think I go back on what I said. I think the facility, practice facility and course should both be differentiated.
Yeah.
I do too.
Because because facility could also be called restaurant, and we've already broken that one out. So.
Right.
Right.
All right,
I
let's go
agree.
back then. Let's go back then. Okay, we're back here now. This is the one we're working with. What else jumps out at you?
I like the fact you got the youth programs featured there too.
Yep. And down here, we have those youth programs in here.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And how they end up being goals and objectives and how they're defined is work for another day. Okay. But I think it's certainly something that we want to. Oops, sorry, I get a bunch of emails coming in here. But certainly, that's why I tried to capture those, at least those two anyway. And there's probably more, Roman, that I'm missing. But I don't know. It depends on how many you want to include in here, because you don't want to have too many of these things, because then you don't have any.
Right.
You got to be careful. Okay, back to this one again. Anything else?
Does award-winning add anything to it, or is it, should it be comprehensive youth programs?
Well, let me tell you what my thinking is behind that one, Jack, and that is that award-winning, Roman, you have been recognized as a person who has introduced creative, innovative youth programs. And so they're programs that are run at Cranberry Valley, and the director of golf has been the guy who's been recognized for it, but they are award-winning in that sense.
Yeah.
That's correct. I would define them as award-winning. We have received awards for, I've personally received awards for our facility because that's how the PGA deals them out. They give the awards to the pro and not the facility in the PGA. So I would define our currently our youth programs as award-winning, and I assume that'll continue. I think we'll continue to gain recognition.
Which is saying leave that in there.
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
I
Anything
think
else,
so.
people? Anything else? Please jump in.
I think it's good,
I
John.
think it looks good, John.
Okay.
John, 1 second. I'm struggling with reading the sentence. Does it run on a little bit at the end? I'm trying to, in my mind, put the whole sentence together.
Probably.
Learn, improve, enjoy, golf. After practice facility, golf
Yeah.
instruction comprehensive. It's even. I don't know if we lose focus with the direction the sentence is going.
What I can do is I can take this out. Does that make it better or no?
John, if you add after golf instruction, comma, and A-N-D, a
I've already got and over here, though. I can't have and twice.
Oh,
I think that's better, John, but that's just my opinion. I think the sentence reads with some good flow now.
Okay. All right. Again, this is a living, breathing statement, and I think that it would be good to publish this thing amongst, or just share it. Okay, I won't say publish it, but share it as still a draft vision statement for Cranberry Valley, for further consideration, and then to finalize it at the June meeting. Because that'll give you a sense to cogitate this and say, you know something, it didn't hit me before, but it hits me now. But however, that presumes that once you have a copy of this, okay, then you're going to be taking a look at this and you'll spend a little bit of time thinking about it. Okay, so just don't call me at 3 a.m. when you wake up because you've come up with something.
it sounds like John, it sounds like a plan.
All right, then let's cover the last part of this, okay? Again, I mentioned before, there needs to be an integration between these and what John's working on in the short term. That way we make sure that we're pulling with the same oars, both next month as well as next year and beyond, as opposed to going in different directions. So I guess what I would suggest is that there be an effort to try and merge these things in some form or fashion with the work that you're doing, John, in a strategic plan. I can't tell you how to do that now, other than perhaps these could be reduced, because we got 10 of them in here now, and it's too many. We probably need 5 tops. Otherwise, it just gets all mushed up. And I don't know which of the 5, what constitutes the magic 5. I just don't know. Clearly, this one does. I think these 2 do, perhaps 1.
Well,
Energy. Go ahead, John.
by the way, John, good work on this. And looking at your potential long-term goals and objectives, Audubon Sanctuary, what do we have to do to actually get Audubon certified?
Doesn't it have to do with the? I thought was what we use fertilizer and the use of fertilizer or lack thereof, or the types or something.
Nope. I can tell you exactly what it does. Basically, Yep, I've been here all along listening. Basically,
it's all
right. Over the course of the next, as soon as this project in the center circle is done, my attention turns to that, because, like I told you 5 years ago, we're doing all this construction, that the best thing to do is wait till it's over and then attack the Audubon. My goal is it's a 3-phase, basically, plan. The plan is they've changed it a little bit, because when you originally started, they never came out. Now they come out and they do a site review. They look at your fertilizer, they look at your pesticides, your water use, and then they look at the overall aspect of the golf course and what your mission is. So it's a 3-phase process. You start with the data, which they have, and then I start writing the programs, which I've already done. It's just a matter of me submitting what we're already doing to them, and then it's a matter of them coming out and doing a ride around and making sure we're doing exactly what we said we were doing.
Sean,
So, go ahead.
I mean, that sounds tremendous. I can't wait till we achieve that completion. I mean, I've been down to a few venues, especially in the South, and you see that very impressive sign as far as, full certification, Audubon Sanctuary. Just a quick question, John, how stringent are they in directing us toward organic fertilizers, or recalibrating, let's say, the use of fertilizers, because I know that's been a question at other places that has surfaced.
So understand this, that when you deal with Audubon's goal is to make you as green as you can be. So that's what our goal is to be green as we can in every aspect. If it's electricity with the solar panels, if it's with the water use and reducing water, if it's with the pesticide use, or it's organic fertilizer, it adds to the overall package. There isn't one thing that's going to give you the high sign to get in. It's an overall product. They have a vision of what they want to see on your golf course when they come out, and they want to see that you're doing those things so that they can back you 100%, saying, yes, Cranberry Valley is that golf course that deserves that distinction. It's not one of those things where you can just, if everyone could do it, everyone would jump in line and just say, hey, throw it in my place. It's
Right.
not that. There's a process. And then as you go forward, those are the things that you highlight, and you say, okay, how much more is it going to cost us to go 100% organic fertilizer? How much is it going to cost us? What are we willing to do? How much are we going to, water-wise, how much are we willing to conserve? Those all take time, because you got to put the golf course through some paces to find out exactly what you can get away with and what you can't, depending on the number of rounds you do. So that's why I was trying to say there is no magic time frame. It's as you get your stuff done, you submit it, and then the final phases, they come out, they go around your golf course and they say, okay, yep, we'd like to see this, or we don't like that, or, it'd be nice. They make suggestions, and once you meet all their suggestions, they give you the that give you that destination.
Okay. Based on the dialogue I just heard, okay, I highlighted number one as being all the ones that are bolded are among my three, okay, that would survive this cut, if you will. And we won't get to the final cut today, okay, especially given the time. But certainly the Audubon energy, achieve energy independence, and the Munchin and some definition of an application of portions of the Munchin report over the 5-year period. It's got to be defined outside this meeting. And there's another one. I'm not sure that solar lighting for the range or for season training facility would necessarily be in my top 5, but this one might.
I think 8 should be in the top 5.
Excuse me?
I think the irrigation system should be on the top 5.
Yeah. Okay. Hopefully my computer didn't freeze on me here. I think so, because we've had such a conversation about accelerating the replacement of heads, et cetera, et cetera. So
that would help fairways in the summer.
Well, understand, you know, the best tool and the only tool that matters, especially as we go into another drought season right now, is the use of the water. Without water, it's hard to maintain what we got. So understand, if you don't have a state-of-the-art system or one that can allow you to make the adjustments when you need to, you're basically not working with all the tools in the shed. You're making it harder for yourself every time you go out there.
You're preaching to the choir, I think, Sean, here. But I think it's more a matter of a long-term goal. If this is something we're going to do in the next 6 months, then it belongs on John's list and not this list. But I don't think that's going to happen.
No, I mean, I think it's going to be your ultimate goal. It's your shed. It's your under that mission, that vision that you have. There's certain things that need to be. I think that if regardless of, I mean, the mission is the mission. But more so than that, there's a couple of things that need to be in there as far as care and maintenance is. The best and the greatest as far as when it comes to irrigation, because the DEP one, and I'm going to be retired, but the DEP is going to come down and say, okay, we got 23 million gallons. You got now half of that. And that day may come, then the golf course is a different golf course than what you have. That's why you need to have the tools as far as the irrigation systems to provide the water where you need it to give you the process that what you have.
John?
Gentlemen.
John?
Yes, John.
Sorry. I've lost my connection 5 times today, so I'm sorry. I keep jumping in and out. But a couple comments on the goals that you have on your page. I think number 1, we should eliminate. I think you've mentioned that in your vision statement. Number 1, as it is, we cannot measure. It's going to take us 3 to 5 years. I mean, how do you measure when we go to organic fertilizer? And when are we going to do that? Next year? Are we going to do it 2 years from now? Are we going to do it 3 years from now?
I think it's something that you do as much of it as you can as you go forward. We do some of it already.
That's not a goal.
Well, what I mean by that, right, that's not a goal. It's just a general maintenance. It's what we call
a goal is going to be, are you going to do organic fertilizer next year?
Right. No, I agree. I don't think it should be a goal.
Are you going to do that?
We are already doing some of it. We are doing out of the whole program, I would tell you we are probably doing 60% of the program.
What would it take to go to 100% then?
More money in the budget.
How much more?
Cost. Well, I gotta play what I do already. I have to duplicate not once but twice, if not 3 times, and I have to look at with organic fertilizer. You have to find out, like we do it in the middle of the summer, so I do it. I get the most bang for my buck, and I do it right around in July. I do 15-3-9 on my fairways. I use synthetic on both ends because it's cold and the organic doesn't work as well. Well, now you got to look at, okay, if I don't have use of organic fertilizer, am I doing strictly a liquid feed in those colder months to get the same reaction that I would get from organics? Or am I building up my organic base over a period of time, and then as a period of time, I don't have to worry spring and fall because it's there for the plant to use when it's ready. But are you guys not going to want to see a green golf course in early April or May because that organics are really not going to kick in? So you got to find out what works for each site as you go forward. We start making the change. If it starts to make the change with us, then we don't have to do much. If it doesn't make that change, then I got to try to figure out a way to get it to work the way that I want it to work to be able to do those things 100%. So either you
John?
just rip the Band-Aid off,
Yeah.
we rip the Band-Aid off and we just go full bore, and we deal with the consequences, or we let me do what I've been doing, which is each year we try to get closer and closer and closer to that number, 100%.
Well,
John, let me ask you question number one, if I could. I changed the wording in this, okay? There's a whole bunch of tactics and things that have to happen for us to be able to achieve number one. But the question then becomes would we anticipate having a sign up front that says we're an Audubon certified Audubon sanctuary by the year 2026? A whole bunch of stuff has to happen to make that happen, but it's one of our objectives to be able to fly that sign by 2026.
well, my only comment to that, John, I think that's a worthwhile comment. But to me, I think the important thing for us looking ahead, whether it be a vision or a long-term goal, is what can we accomplish in the next 2 to 3 years? And I think the things that we've identified, number one, and we've taken a real substantial step towards one of them in achieving energy independence, is with a solar farm. Now, once we're creating our own energy and running that's an accomplishment. The other thing is on irrigation. The only thing we've talked about in irrigation, we've identified the biggest need that we have is wireless heads. That's what our goal is. It's not to have a state-of-the-art irrigation system. It's to have wireless heads where we can control the water, which then makes us much more energy efficient or water efficient, as Sean has said, looking to the future. But I mean, we've identified our biggest irrigation problem is heads right now, the wireless heads.
Right.
So I think that's what we got to keep our focus on.
Hey, John, could I chip in a comment too? And Sean, it's more or less directed at you. Have you people been involved in any conversations with this particular technology? And it's the use of gray water as a supplement, Sean, to your existing water resources. Because with the prospect of the new sewer and watering, initiative within the town, to John Wheeler and John Crook's points, there might be a hidden resource there that we can take advantage of. Has anybody approached you, Sean?
Well, I've had that conversation back when they were talking sewers, that if they needed to get rid of gray water, that the golf course would entertain the idea. The only issue that we had at that point was there was no talk as the plant being anywhere in the vicinity of the Cranberry Valley Golf Course. They were talking more towards Harwich Fort, maybe something being down towards that, maybe Harwich Fort Golf Club at that point. But in the beginning, none of that's happened now because they decided to go all the way over to Dennis. There are other issues with gray water, but at this point, if it's your only source of water that you have, or if you're losing your natural resource, then I would say you have to look at all aspects as much as you can to cut back the problems that you may have. The driving range, you know what I mean? It is not an issue. I can lose the water. You know what I mean? It's not like it's not going to bother me.
Right.
What is gray water?
Gray water is basically sewage water that's treated. And then basically what's coming out on the other end is the gray water. They do it already for the Links Golf Course in Yarmouth. There's a sewage plant right behind the Links Golf Course over to the right. You can see it from the highway. That
Right.
They water that field, that golf course with gray water.
And what's the impact on the grass?
In actuality, there's none. There's no impact. You're already treating your grass for pH. You're always checking pH. The only thing is that sometimes, like they had accident. Some sewage got into the system. I don't know how the problem came about over at there, and they did have an issue over there. But if everything's done right, it's proven that it works. Gray water is just as good as regular water. It don't matter.
But realistically, that's not even in the next 10 years.
At this point, I would say no. I mean, I don't think that Cape Cod is looking at a problem with water probably until well past my time gone. So and I'm 53. So I think that future generations may have to look at it, but definitely not in the next 20 to 30 years.
I'm going to propose something here, Clem, okay? And that is what we've agreed to this one, okay? The one that's bolded.
Right.
As the latest version, not necessarily the final, but it's damn close, okay? And we have and we have some discussion regarding the adequacy, I'll call it that, okay, of what I've listed here. I'm going to propose, since John's working on the short-term ones, that he and I sort of, as a sort of a subgroup, okay, get together and hammer this thing out for your consideration. Does that work for you guys or no?
Yes,
Yep.
it does.
And John, my assumption is you're back up north?
John.
John Crook?
He's frozen again.
He's frozen again?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I can't, I don't know where he is, so. Well, so I'm going to propose that, okay, that he and I take this list that I'm highlighting for you guys, okay, now, and restructure it so that it is more in line with the things that John's talking about. And that way we can give something back to you to marry with this, that bold statement. Does that work for you guys?
Yep.
Okay,
Excellent.
sounds good. All right. So with that, I'm going to give you back the screen if I figure out how to do it on this software. Stop sharing screen. How's that? Ah, magic.
Perfect. Thank you,
There we go.
John.
You're welcome.
Appreciate your efforts, and we'll look forward to reviewing that. I've got John Crook on my phone. I put him on speakerphone. I guess his feed back home is off and on, but
He's here though, right? He's here though, right?
Yeah, John, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Okay.
He's local, right?
Yeah, he's up in Harwich. That's the
Isn't there,
problem.
isn't there a dial-in only portion to the meeting? Just have him call that.
Yeah. I don't know if he has that, Steve. Thank you. In any event, John, how would you like to proceed as far as the strategic plan short-term goals are concerned?
You ask which John are you talking to? John Crook, right?
John Crook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What we could do is, I'll try to put something together for the next meeting, which encompasses the things that we're working on right now, and also the goals and objectives that John has put together here. And I think what we want to do is try to keep it to a minimum in terms of what's achievable.
Okay.
Because I think in terms of even, things that we're working on the golf course, obviously the objectives right now is you're not going to do a lot of additional work on the golf course because you have to really keep it, the focus right now is keeping it playable during the peak season. So, I mean, things that you be working on to improve, and I'm sure Sean would agree with this, is, starts in the fall.
Right. Okay. That sounds like a plan, John. We'll look forward to that. And by the way, people, I'll beg for your indulgence here. It's kind of a medical issue that we're going to have to deal with in the Smith family. So I'd like to move that meeting from the 15th of June to the 22nd. Does that present a problem for anybody?
No.
That'd be great.
I can do that.
Thank you. Anybody else, John? Does that work? Okay, great. Well, folks, if there's no other business to bring before the committee, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Martha. And a second. All in favor?
Second.
Aye. Thank you. Have a great evening. Great weekend, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Clem. I never know how to get out of this.